We all remember where we were on that morning of October 7th, 2023. I was in Niagara Falls celebrating Simchat Torah with our community, and we couldn't believe the news that people were reporting around the world, around us. We heard about the kibbutzim, about the Nova Festival, the takeover of the Sderot police station. It was very frightening. And I wondered who I knew. I heard it was in southern Israel. My family is mostly centered around Tel Aviv, and some of my siblings live in Tzfat. But I was like, who do I know who is in that area? I thought of some friends who live in kibbutzim, but I never imagined it was Ela. Before I introduce Ela, I want to take you back not to October 7th, but much earlier. It's 2011. I'm teaching grade 6 at the Hamilton Hebrew Academy for the very first time. And in my classroom sits the 12-year-old girl named Ela. Bright eyes, big heart. One day, I remember her standing behind her chair in front of her desk. And she says, after high school, I'm joining the IDF. I remember being taken aback. Most kids dream of being singers, athletes, or doctors. But Ela was so determined at that 12-year-old age. She was dreaming already of protecting her people, passionate, idealistic. She wasn't just my student. Her family have become close family friends. And then fast forward to October 7, 2023. For us, here it was Simchat Torah, and I did not check my phone until the next day at night. And when I turned on my phone, I see, a little bit like what's going on, and I go on Facebook, see what people have posted, and here come some posts from Ela. She's posting pictures of her friends, the ones who were at the Nova Festival with her, when I realized then that that's what it is. Posters, their faces, their names, phone numbers, to call if anyone had seen them. She was begging for help, searching. You can see her soul coming through the screen. And then, just a few days later, those posts stopped, because the next week, Ela wasn't searching anymore. Bodies were identified. She was at funerals now. Instead of posters, it was eulogies and graves. And then a few months later, we met in Tel Aviv on the rooftop of the Sheraton Grand. We sat together for 3 hours. She told me everything. The fun, the sunrise, the rockets, the screaming, the running through the fields, the hiding, the silence afterwards. We cried. We hugged. And she said to me, you're the first person outside my Nova circle I've told the whole story to. In that moment, I just wanted to take all of it away. The pain, the images, the sound. I wanted to turn back the clock, bring her friends back, and give her back the innocence of being 22. That age where life is supposed to be about fun, music, freedom, road trips, not funerals and trauma. I knew I couldn't fix it, I couldn't bring them back. All I could do was to sit with her, hold her story, and love her through it. And I kept thinking about all of you, my community back home in Niagara, my students and community at Brock, how deeply everyone was affected by October 7, how much you wanted to do something to embrace the survivors, to bring the hostages home, and how if you were on that rooftop with me, you would have wrapped Ela in the biggest hug. Ela is here tonight, alive, speaking. That is not small. It is a miracle. A year ago, she could not imagine standing up and telling her story in front of people. Healing is not linear. It doesn't move in straight lines, but choosing to speak, choosing to give meaning to memory is courage. So tonight, we don't just listen. We hold Ela's story, we honor her friends, we surround her with love. Please join me in welcoming, with all of our hearts, Ela Levgoren.
Can you guys hear me like this?
Yeah.
Perla, thank you so much for that introduction. Honestly, I'm really emotional right now after hearing all of that, so I'll probably get a little bit emotional as I speak, but it's from the heart, and I want to start off by saying thank you so much for everyone who's here, for coming to hear my story and letting me share a very big part of my life. Even though October 7th, 2023, it's already been 2 years since then, but obviously the atrocities of October 7th, it's something that each one of us carries with us till this day. And it means the world to me to be able to be here speaking in front of you and sharing my story. So thank you. So I want to start by telling you guys a little bit about myself. So my name is Ela Levgoren, and I'm 25 years old. I was born in Israel, and when I was 6 years old, I moved with my beautiful family to Canada. This is my family. My parents are actually right here today. And I have 2 sisters, Ronnie and Yali, and I'm the middle child. We moved to Canada when I was 6 years old to Hamilton, and I grew up here my entire life. I went to the Hamilton Hebrew Academy where I met Perla, and she was my teacher. And honestly, I have such a great childhood living here because ever since I was young, I was very, very connected with my Jewish roots, and I loved learning, I loved experiencing it, and we were such a small, little tiny private Jewish school in Hamilton. I had about 8 kids in my class, and so it was like this big family, and I felt so loved and supported. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better school experience and a better childhood here. And when I finished 8th grade, I moved to Dundas Valley Secondary School for high school. I was living in Dundas, and this was a really big switch because you go from this teeny tiny little private Jewish school to this giant world of teenagers, very big public high school, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but honestly, I adapted pretty well because I've always loved change. I love meeting people, I'm very friendly, and so I really got into it and enjoyed every single year of my high school experience. And I remember when I turned 18, we were graduating, finishing up 12th grade, and everyone in my grade was talking about what they're going to study and where they're going to go for university. And I was freaking out because I was talking to my parents and I said to them, listen, I'm 18. I have no idea what I want to eat for breakfast tomorrow. How am I supposed to know what I'm going to do for the next 4 years of my life? And I had always known in my heart that I wanted to go back to Israel at a certain point in my life. Also for myself, because I wanted to feel like I was creating my own identity and writing my own story, but also because I knew that being part of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and serving in the military was something that every Israeli and Jewish teen goes on to experience, and it was really important for me because of my love for my country and my family and my friends that were there, that I go and I do this thing for myself. And so I made the brave decision to leave Canada, leaving my family and everything I've known behind, and I decided to move to Israel. I arrived to Israel in August of 2018. I made Aliyah through a program called Garin Sabar. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of it, but it's an amazing program where they take people just like me who are coming to Israel from different countries, coming as lone soldiers, meaning that we don't have a home base or our parents or immediate families there. And they put us in different kibbutzim all around Israel, and they give us this pre-army 3-month process where we live together, we experience Israel, we travel, we learn about the army, we prepare, and then each one of us goes on to draft into the different position in the army. And so I drafted in November 2018 to the IDF, and I served for 2 years as an instructor in combat engineering unit. And basically what that means is that I was every single day with soldiers on the field, teaching them how to work with demolition, bombs, underground tunnel work, and minefields. And it was very cool. It was a very crazy experience because, I'm coming from this teeny tiny little town of Dundas, where everything is very happy and calm, and suddenly I'm dealing with such crazy things that I never would have imagined that I would get to do. And it taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of confidence, a lot of belief in myself, and this experience in the military really made me grow. And when I finished my service, I finished in 2020, I saved up a lot of money and worked really hard because it's very known in Israeli culture that before you start university and once you finish the army, a lot of people choose to go and travel. And so I saved up all my money and I embarked on a solo backpacking trip in South America. And it was one of the best years of my life, if not the best. These are some photos from my trip in South America, just a few, because I was there for 10 months and I traveled to many different countries. And the beautiful thing was, I went alone, and it is very scary, as a woman traveling by yourself backpacking through South America. However, it was beautiful to see how many incredible people I met along the way. And I met a lot of amazing Israelis that I became friends with. And so even though I traveled alone, I was never really alone. And I created such amazing friends that I would keep seeing in every different destination I would get to. And it made me so excited to get back home to Israel because I kind of felt like I'm finally going to experience what it's like living in Israel as an Israeli. Up until this point, I could definitely feel, the difference between me and them, that I came from Canada and that I didn't have, my usual life there the way they had with their families and their homes. And I knew that when I came back this time around, I have this whole new life and new friends that I can call family, and I can really experience the Israeli identity. And so I get back to Israel in August from my trip, August of 2023. And before I had even gotten back, everyone was already speaking about this crazy festival happening in October called Nova. And it was a very big hype amongst our friends because so many of us wanted to go, and we actually purchased tickets, some of us even before we arrived back in Israel from our trip. And I remember waiting so much for this day to come because I knew it would be like a giant reunion where I would get to see all of my friends from my South America trip and get to dance with them and have the greatest time. And so I want to stop for a second and ask, has any one of you ever been or experienced a music festival by a show of hands? Okay, we've got a few. So as you guys know, and maybe people who haven't experienced it, there is something so euphoric about music festivals. For me personally, music is my life. Ever since I was young, it was my go-to form of expression. And I love festivals because it's kind of a mix of all the things I love most in the world. Beautiful people dancing, smiling, everyone just handing out free love and good energy. And you kind of feel like you're on top of the world for a second. You let yourself get lost in the music. And I can't really explain the emotions I get when I go to festivals, but it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done ever since I was young. And these are just a few of festivals I've been to. Niagara and Veld are actually two festivals that are here in Canada. And so this Nova Festival, I want you guys to understand that it was just like all of these festivals. And so to understand that, the amount of people there and the amount of craziness and euphoria in the air, for it to become what it became is the most brutal form of irony there is. We'll get to that. Right now, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my Nova experience, and I call this, the calm before the storm, because I want to speak for a second about the moments, before the sun rose and everything changed. So I can tell you guys that when I arrived at the festival, I knew that I was going to see at least 200 to 300 people I knew there, because again, this was like a big reunion and all of our friends planned this together. And I knew that I was planning to actually continue my travels back to Canada and then Australia. That was my plan. And I actually had a flight booked for October 24th. And I knew that this was my last chance to come and kind of say goodbye to all my friends and see everyone before, I go off and embark on my next journey. And so I arrived at the festival. This is the first and one of the only photos I have from the festival. This is my friend Guy, and this is me, at around 2 a.m. And when we arrived at the festival, I just felt like I was in this magical land. You see people dancing, everyone is smiling, hugging, having the greatest time. Everything is very colorful, and the noise from the music is just incredible, incredible. I can't even express in words the magnetic energy that we all experienced. And honestly, I'm not the only survivor who has said this. This was probably one of the best parties and festivals of my life until 6:29 a.m. And so just to give you a little bit of context, this is a photo of some of my friends and I at our campsite. Basically, everyone had set up campsites where, you know, when you're not dancing and walking around, you can kind of have a chill zone with your friends, you can drink, hang out. And so this is one of the many sites that my friends and I had set up so we could hang out. And I'm going to show you a little video of me dancing with my friends. This is around 5:50 in the morning, so this is, you know, right before everything changed. I'm not sure how to put this remote. Oh, it's on there. I don't want you guys to miss out on the music because it was really good. So while we figure out the sound, you can hear it a little bit, but this was just a teeny glimpse, you know, of the type of energy that was there. So you see thousands of people, everyone is dancing, everyone is happy, and I honestly felt like I was on cloud nine. And honestly, I'll be very real with you, I experienced so many emotions at this festival because I have always had a tendency to, all right. So that's just a tiny snippet. It was longer, but I always say I don't want people to get jealous of my dancing skills. So I made the video. And you know, I was kind of having all these inner dialogues with myself throughout the night because honestly, like 2 or 3 meters I would walk, I would bump into someone else I knew, and then another person and another person. And while that was fun, you kind of have this feeling of FOMO. FOMO is fear of missing out, and it's basically exactly how I felt during this festival, where I wanted to be at every single place at once and with all my friends at once, and you don't know what you're missing, and I kind of felt like it was taking over my ability to kind of just be in the moment. And I remember shortly after this video, I was on the dance floor with my friends dancing, and suddenly I kind of lost everyone. And I found myself standing completely by myself. And I see that the sun is beginning to rise. And at festivals, it's very known that, the sunrise is like the peak of the entire festival. It's the moment where everyone gets together and kind of has this beautiful, magical few moments where you kind of just put yourself in nature, you forget about everything, you see the sun rise, and I knew I wanted to be with all my friends in this moment. But I couldn't find them, and I was really, really frustrated. And then I kind of spoke to myself and I said, you know what, Ella, maybe this is a sign. And maybe God is trying to tell you to kind of let go. Let go of the FOMO, let go of the people pleaser in you, let go of the, always wanting something that's not right in front of you, and just let yourself be. And that's exactly what I decided to do. And so I stood there on the dance floor by myself, and I kind of closed my eyes, and I remember this moment where I just felt the music, was watching the sunrise, and I was saying thank you for this incredible, incredible moment I'm experiencing with myself right now. And I remember the sun was going up, And as I look up at the sky, I suddenly see fireworks. And I was just mesmerized. I see these fireworks in the sky, and I thought to myself, why would they have fireworks now? The sun is rising, it doesn't make sense. But again, I was like, maybe this is God saying, you know what, you go, Ella, like this is your moment, just take it in. And then 6:29 hits, and I just remember everything goes silent. The music stops, and I just stand frozen on the dance floor. And I remember the DJ was there. Suddenly he comes up to the stand and starts saying, red alert, there's a rocket attack. The festival is over, the music is over, everybody go find shelter, everybody go home, the festival is done. Now in that moment, I can't explain to you what went on because, suddenly out of nowhere, everything stops. And I physically could not move. I felt like I was frozen in place, and I was a little bit in a state of shock. And then it hit me, Ella, those weren't fireworks. Those were rockets right over your head, and you need to go right now. So I'm gonna show you guys a video. This was around 6:31. This is right after the music stopped, and I was kind of frozen in place. And one of my friends, Ben, bumped into me on the dance floor at that point. And we hugged, and I was like, wow, what are you doing here? And he said, we gotta go. And I told him, come with me, I'll take you to the campsite where the rest of our friends, I thought they might be. And this is just to give you a gist of, the type of energy that was happening in those moments.
פינו אותנו, אנחנו גמורים, מלא פיצוצים. אין עם מי לדבר, איזה באסה, כולם בסטות. יואו, כולם בבלגנים, כולם לא רואים בהם, יואו.
Okay, so he was speaking here in Hebrew, but I'll loosely translate. He is saying in the video, the music stopped, there's rockets, they're sending us home, we have to go find shelter. And he was saying, look at all these people, everyone is, going mad, like this is crazy. And you can see in the video, I was even smiling because no one really understood what was going on. Keep in mind at this time, Hamas had already infiltrated the border. They were already in the kibbutzim and on the road surrounding the festival site. And we had no idea, we had no way of knowing this. And so all of us at this point are just assuming that there are, red alerts and there's sirens. Now, unfortunately, in this area of Israel, near the Gaza border in the south, rockets and red alerts, this is something that they deal with pretty much on a daily basis. And because I had lived near the Gaza border in Urim when I first moved to Israel, I kind of knew that this is something that happens. And so even just from the video, you can't really see, but I can explain to you that the energy I felt like it divided into two. There was the people that were already freaking out, hyperventilating, screaming, crying on the ground, having panic attacks because it is very, very scary. And then you had the other side of people where, they were just mad that the music stopped. They were like, we just want the music to get back on. And okay, whatever, this happens all the time. This isn't anything special. We'll just wait it out. And 10, 20 minutes, the music will go back on. I was kind of somewhere in the middle. And I remember that Ben and I ran to meet the rest of our friends. And we were about 20 friends, in my campsite. And as we were getting ourselves ready, we were packing up our things. I want you to hear what we were hearing in real time. Now you can't really hear even well in the video, but all of those little noises, it wasn't wind, it was bombs, and it was automatic gunfire, and it was all around us. But again, we did not know at this point that there were terrorists all around us. Now, typical Ella, doesn't plan anything ahead, very spontaneous, and I had no idea how I was getting home after the festival, who I was going to go home with. I knew that the festival was meant to last until around 6 p.m. on this Saturday, so I said I'll figure it out when the time comes. And then the time came way earlier than expected, and I found myself kind of running between all my friends at different camps, trying to figure out who I can go back with, because we had kind of made a game plan that, you know what guys, let's all get out of here. Why don't we continue this at the beach in Tel Aviv? Let's all just split up into cars. We'll go to Tel Aviv, we'll put on a speaker, and everything will be good. In the worst case, you know, if things calm down and the music comes back on, then we'll just, you know, make a U-turn and come back to the festival. And I remember I was running, you know, trying to find my place, and suddenly these people don't have room in the car, and these people don't have room in the car, and I felt very anxious. And then my friend Karen, this is Karen, he said to me, Ella, you know, I have space in my car, just come with us. And we split up into cars, and we made a game plan. We're going to meet in Tel Aviv. And so in the car, it was Karen who was driving, Mayan, this is me, Adi, and Eyal. These are my friends from South America that I met in Peru. And I remember, you know, we're packing up our things and we're getting in the car. And suddenly, one of my best friends, her name is Gili, she calls me. Now, this is Gili, and this is Abraham. They're two of my really good friends from South America. And that whole week, Gili and I were trying to meet up so many times. I haven't seen her in a while. She's one of my favorite people, and you know, every single day we tried to meet up, and it fell through because of something stupid. Like, she couldn't get the car, and I missed my train, and it was really, really frustrating. And so we both knew we would be at the festival, and I told myself, you know, the person I want to see most tonight is her. At this point, I hadn't seen her yet, because nobody expected this to happen so early into the night. And she calls me and she goes, Ella, where are you? I said to her, listen, we're just getting in the car, you know, we want to get out of here because there's no bomb shelters in the area, we want to go find safety. She said, no, don't go, listen, leave them, come to me. Abraham and I are here, we're sitting by a tree, we opened a little picnic area, everyone is here, we're dying to see you, just come and I'll drive you home after and it's fine, just come and be with us. I can't let you go without seeing you. And so I kind of said, okay, of course, you know, I'm going to leave my police friends and go see Gili because she's the person I actually want to be with right now. And I remember, you know, I'm already in the car and I'm about to, I told her, okay, I'll wait, I'm coming. And I hang up the phone and I remember I'm trying to open the door to get out of the car. And my body could not move. Now this experience is something that I will never forget this moment because I want you guys to understand that I was at the peak of my energy at this time. You know, I had drank, I was very energized, I was super, super happy, I did not feel tired at all. And suddenly when I tried to open the door, it was as if my body became paralyzed. I couldn't move, not my legs, not my hands. And I remember, you know, screaming to myself in my head, Ella, what's wrong with you? Just open the door, why can't you move? I felt like my body was giving up on me and I was so frustrated. But I was noticing, you know, that everyone in the car is in a rush to leave and I don't want to hold anyone up. And this is all while, you know, we're having all of the rockets going above our head. And so I called Gili back and I said to her, listen, I can't explain it, but I can't move. I can't get out of the car. I don't want to keep anyone waiting. Let's just do this. We're going to go to Tel Aviv. You should come meet us there at the beach. Let's update each other in 20 minutes. You know, if things have calmed down, we'll come back to you and we'll continue dancing. If not, you come to us. She said, okay, perfect, keep me updated. And that was that. And so we get in the car and we left the festival site at 7:10. So from the moment everything stopped until now, it was about 40-45 minutes. And, you know, I remember we get out and we start driving, and as we're trying to get out of the festival site, there is just a bottleneck traffic jam because you have 4,000 people trying to get out from one or two entrances all at once. And, you know, it's chaos in itself. On top of that, everyone's anxiety, everyone's been drinking, and there's sirens, and everyone has fear for their life. And I remember Karen, you know, we're sitting in this traffic jam, and we kind of said, you know, we're sitting ducks here. Something doesn't feel good to me, something feels fishy. And I think we all felt it, but again, at this point, we had no idea that there were terrorists all around. We thought it was just the rockets. And he kind of said, we're not sitting here like sitting ducks. And he made the decision to cut through this side road, and he drove so fast, about 160 kilometers per hour. We kind of went right ahead of all the cars until we managed to get back on the road and avoid this big traffic jam. And so I want to show you guys our route that we took. So right here, this is where the Nova site was. Once we passed the traffic jam, to get onto the 232 road, we had made a turn towards Rahamim at the start. And we drove a little bit, and then we saw that all of the cars were making U-turns and signaling for us to turn. There was apparently a cop blockade, like a roadblock, that at the time we had no idea why. Later we realized that it was because terrorists had already infiltrated the area and they were trying to tell everyone to go in the other direction. And so we made a U-turn and we start driving on this road. And as we're driving on this road, we pass Barry and Ali, these two kibbutzim. And I remember when we passed them, I see alongside the side of the road a bunch of cars damaged, windows broken, doors left open, and dead bodies lying on the ground. Now, in that moment, I think that my brain was trying to protect me from understanding what I was seeing, and I kind of translated it to, okay, when there's sirens, in Israel it's a protocol that if you're in the car, when there's a siren and there's rockets, you have to stop on the side of the road, you have to get down on the ground and put your hands on your head. And so that's what I thought they were doing. It took me a little bit to realize what I had actually seen, and over time, those images became very, very clear to me, and it's something that doesn't leave my mind till today. And so we kept driving, and throughout this drive, I have to say that, again, just like what had happened when I was on the phone with Eli, where my body gave in, it happened again and again and again. And I actually ended up passing out about 2 to 3 times in this car ride. I would suddenly lose consciousness for about a minute or two and then wake back up again. And Karen was saying, give her water, Ella, you're not okay, you keep fainting. And I said, no, I'm not, I'm fine. You just fainted like 2 minutes ago. And I was so unaware. It was as if I was going through this entire inner war with myself about what is happening to my body. And I couldn't digest it, I couldn't process it. And after the 3rd time, where I kind of passed out and woke up, suddenly I had this crazy, crazy urge inside of me that just said, we have to stop right now. As we're driving, we hear everything around us. We hear the guns, we hear the bombs, and we're in open air. You literally are looking up and you see the rockets flying above your head, and you don't know if it's going to fall right on you. And so I kind of woke up and I kind of screamed to them, we need to stop. We need to find a bomb shelter, Karen. We need to stop right now. We can't keep driving. And at first they didn't want to stop because, in our minds it was like the quicker we get out of this area and go towards Sderot, which would lead us to Tel Aviv, the quicker we'll be safe. But I was very adamant, and very luckily so, because this was really the moment that changed everything for us. And so I told them we have to stop, and we decided to stop in Sad, which is right here. It's a kibbutz. And we ended up stopping here, and I just want you to understand the context. Everything that is in red, this is Gaza, this is the border, and this route is the 232 route. Everything that is dotted in red is where the terrorists were in accordance to where we were at these times. Every single one of these bigger blocks of red is when there were bigger groups of terrorists on one spot. And so all of this is between 7 and 7:30. We had left at 7:10, and by 7:26, we were at Sad. So I can't even explain to you, seeing this later, months later, this information only came out later, I suddenly realized, it wasn't like I beat them and I was a few steps ahead of them and I didn't see any of the terrorists with my eyes. They were quite literally on top of us the entire time. There's a very, very good chance that we were shot towards, and I can't really explain how I'm here. I truly, truly believe that there was some bigger power type of invisibility cloak. That's how we felt, that protected us from seeing them, and protected us from them seeing us as well. We get to Sud, and this is a photo from when we were in the shelter. This is at 7:26. We actually ended up being here for only about 4 to 5 minutes, because as soon as we got into the shelter, this is just the 5 of us. And keep in mind that at this point, when we were driving down this road, we did not see any cars around us. We had no one to compare the situation to. We had no idea what was going on. We weren't sure there were terrorists, but we kind of started thinking, okay, it seems like there are. And it's very scary because it's just, we're 5 people and no one has any information. You don't have service half of the time in these areas. And I remember we were inside this bomb shelter, and with all the bombs and everything, suddenly we hear this noise, and it just goes, and it's just automatic rifle shooting again and again and again. Now it's very known in the IDF that we are not allowed to do automatic shooting, and so when we heard this, we knew that these weren't soldiers. And slowly, texts were starting to come in from friends. This girl was shot, there's terrorists, they're over here, they're over there. And we're kind of starting to understand the bigger picture of what's going on around us. We all made this decision. We said, we can't wait here. We have to get back in the car, and we'll keep going to Stilot just like we planned. And we get in the car, and this was very, very defining, life-changing moment for us. As we left Sud, we were going towards Stilot, and we get out and we get in the car. We drive about a meter or 2, and suddenly this car passes us that was coming towards Stilot, and it's this man. I never got his name. It was a split second of a moment where he just rolled down his window and he looks at us, and I don't know what he had seen. He looks frantic in his eyes, and he just says, "Do not go to Stilot, do not go to Stilot, whatever you're doing, make a U-turn right now, go back to the party, go back where you guys came from, do not continue down this road," and he drives away. Now all of us, we don't understand, what did we see, what's going on, and we were quite literally at a crossroads. There was a roundabout there, and we had to make a decision in split seconds what we're going to do. If we had ignored this man and continued towards Stilot, we would have been dead in minutes. At this point, in this time, all the terrorists that had infiltrated through this road had already taken over Stilot and were making their way towards us. If we had listened to him and went back towards the party where we came from, we also would have been dead in minutes. Because at this point, they had already attacked Be'eri Aguim and had already reached the Nova site. So anyone who didn't manage to get out between these times was stuck in the site, which led them to flee their cars. All the videos and footage you saw of people running in the fields, this was all happening at this time. And for some crazy reason, Karen just decided, we're gonna go down this third road, this third option, which eventually led us to Nitivot, and that was the road that saved our lives. We ended up driving insanely fast, and as we're driving, we start seeing things, on our phones while we're talking to our friends. We understand the situation. I start getting texts from family, friends, and we realize that all of Israel is under attack. So there is no more going to Tel Aviv or going to the beach. We just knew we had to get to someone's house, to get to some form of safety. And we drove like maniacs until we eventually reached Karen's house, which is in Bet Chibut, which is way further up north. And we had done it in such a short amount of time because of how fast he drove and how empty the roads were. Now, as we're driving, I suddenly think, oh shoot, what about Gili? I said I would update her. It's been 20 minutes, she's probably already on the way home, but I have to call her and check in. And I remember, I picked up the phone and I called her while we're still on our escape route. And these moments, these 20 seconds with her on the phone were honestly the worst 20 seconds of my life. She picks up the phone and I just hear her, and she's screaming to me, and she says, Ella, I can't talk, they're coming, they're running after me, I have to hide, I can't talk. She's freaking out, and I hear the shots all around, and I hear people screaming, and this is all, in my ear. None of my friends in the car are hearing the things I'm hearing. I couldn't even get a word out, because she just said, I can't talk, they're coming, I have to run, and she hangs up. And I think that was the first moment where my innocence was fully shattered. If up until now I wasn't realizing what was going on, hearing the fear in her voice was the worst moment of my life. And Gili is one of the most bright, beautiful, happy people anyone will ever meet. I have never heard her complain, cry, be angry. This girl is a ray of sunshine, and so to hear her voice this way was something that absolutely shattered my soul. And I texted her as soon as she hung up. I started calling the police. Each one of us is while Karan is driving, we're trying to do damage control and help all of our friends that are still stuck. And I remember I'm calling the police, and they're hanging up, and I call, and they keep hanging up. No one's picking up. I finally get a hold of someone, and I say, thinking that we're the first people to let them know that this is happening. And she just says to me, everyone knows, no one can come to you. I said, what? She said, no one can come physically, no one can reach the area. Everyone knows you're here. Tell your friends to pray, tell your friends to hide, be safe, and do not share locations because there's also a cyber attack happening. She just said, no one's coming to get you right now. You just have to pray and hide. And I was so angry. I felt so desperate for help, and I just felt like there was nothing I could do, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I remember I was texting Gili, and these are the last texts that I had sent to her right after we spoke. I translated a few to English, where I basically just saying to her, everything's going to be okay. My love, I'm here for you. Are you guys still there? Where are you in Abraham? Because I knew they were together. I said to her, they know about you. They know, and forces are coming, and just be safe and be strong, and I'm not giving up, and everything's going to be okay. And I love you, and I'm here for you. And as you guys can see, some of the messages delivered, and at a certain point, they were no longer delivering. And I kept telling myself, her phone probably died, she doesn't have service, it's fine, it's Gili. She's the strongest person I know. She's gonna be fine, and she's gonna text me back soon. Now, we eventually got to Karan's place, and I remember we entered his house, and his parents, opened the door and hugged us, and we see the TV, and on the TV, you just see, all over the news, Israel under attack, the Nova Festival site is under attack, the massacre, over 1,000 terrorists infiltrated the border. And I'm seeing these things on the TV, and I'm going crazy, and I'm saying, how the heck am I here? How am I watching this on TV? I was just there, and why the hell are none of my friends saying they made it out as well? Why are we the only ones here? And how is this even possible? How is this happening right now? And I remember we all sat, each one of us just trying to call people, getting help, trying to use our friends' information to locate where they are to send help their way. That was actually the first time I called my parents. Up until then, I hadn't spoken to them because, again, they were in Canada, and, time difference, and I didn't even think about it. And I called my dad, and I remember the first thing I said to him was like, Dad, I was at this festival, I'm fine, I need you to help me, I need you to get me whoever you can from your service to help find my friends. They're in danger, there's terrorists all around them, just please help me. I kind of got into this insane survival mode where for those next 4 days, first of all, I did not have a home to go back to. I never got to have, that hug with my mom and dad, just like all my friends did. And it was something that was really hard and missing for me. And luckily, my uncle lived next to Karen, and so Karen dropped me off there eventually after a few hours, and I ended up being there for about 10 days at my uncle's And these 4 days were the longest moments of my life because I cannot explain to you the feeling of waiting and uncertainty. As I said, I was paralyzed and uncertain. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't shower, I couldn't function. I spent every waking minute messaging people, posting about my friends, looking through every horrendous video I could find that he must have posted on Telegram to try to find my friends in these videos. And I was not even close to starting to process, what I went through. I wasn't even there because I was just trying to kind of put out fires and rescue my friends. And I remember, my sisters came and stayed with me, and it got to the point where my family had to physically take my phone away. They had to put me to bed, they had to feed me, they had to watch over me because I was going crazy. And on the 4th day, I remember my uncle came up to me because I was frantic, and I will never forget this moment. He just grabbed me and he says, "Ella, I need you to listen to me. You need to pray that your friends are dead and that they're not kidnapped. There's no third alternative, there's no third option. I need you to get it through your head." And I wasn't having it. That sentence, I was so mad at him. I couldn't accept that this was my life, that this is the truth. And this is a photo, one of the photos I posted, asking if anyone can help, if anyone can see my friends. Now, on October 10th was the day that everything, kind of the beginning of the end. I remember my sister came up to me and she said, "Ella, I need to talk to you." She sat me down and she held my hand and she started crying. And she said, "Ella, I'm so sorry. They found Zalman's body. They found him, he's dead." Zalman is also a very good friend of mine from South America. He also made Aliyah. He's from Canada, and he also made Aliyah to draft in the IDF. And he was such an incredible person. Even during these moments, in the last moments of his life where he could have escaped, he ended up staying and helping other people who were wounded. And that was the type of person that he was. And I remember when she told me about Ben, I can't explain to you guys what happened in my body. It was as if a demon just came out of me. I have never ever felt this amount of pain and agony and pure despair in my life. It was as if all of these days where I was holding myself together, not functioning, were all coming out of this moment. Is that better? Yeah. Should we start from the beginning? These moments, it was the first time I was feeling, there's something about this survival mode where you're kind of in fight or flight, and suddenly this was like someone shot an arrow into my chest and shattered my heart. And I remember, my older sister sent my younger sister away. She said, "I don't want you to see this or hear this." They told me later that it was, they had never heard a person shriek and cry and scream that viciously before in their life. And it's not something, I didn't even recognize myself in those moments. And I remember as I'm sobbing, I can't breathe. And suddenly my phone is ringing and it's another friend of mine. And I throw the phone at my sister and I was like, just answer, I can't. And she puts the phone on speaker and she says to my friend, "Listen, Ella can't talk. She just found out about her friend Ben. She can't talk." And I hear my friend start sobbing on the phone. And I just go, no, I can't hear this right now. And she just says, "Gili, she's gone. They found her." Finding out these things less than 5 minutes apart was the worst feeling of my life. And I actually had to choose between my friends' funerals which is not something any 23-year-old should have to do. And from that day on, I call it the morning after, because this next phase of my life genuinely just felt like one long, never-ending day. I just remember it was, a week after week of funeral after funeral after funeral and shivas, and you just can't process, you don't even understand what's going on. And I was devastated. And, eventually, after a week and a half, my dad was able to get an urgent flight out to Israel, and he came to get me, and we ended up staying at my grandfather's house, which is in the South. And those 2 to 3 months, I was basically the living dead. I could not function. I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't even go outside alone in the dark. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. My dad, thank God, was with me, feeding me, taking care of me, sitting with me, coming with me in the late hours of the night when I just wanted a breath of fresh air. I couldn't talk to anyone. And it was as if I was reliving this day over and over again. Every time I would close my eyes, I would see the dead bodies. Every time I would try to sleep, it was as if I felt like I had 100 terrorists over my bed, and I couldn't. I survived, but I genuinely felt like that day I died inside. And one of the only things that saved me and helped me in those moments were all the incredible, incredible people and communities that came together very quickly and created all of these amazing safe houses and retreats and little sanctuaries for us survivors where we could come and spend our days. They would cook food for us because they knew we weren't eating or drinking. They would have music and art and just being able to be in nature, and therapists and psychologists coming and sitting with us. And I've never felt so much love from the people around me. And it's insane because, these are things that I would say, typical Ella, these are the best things, my favorite things in the world, music and art and friends and nature. And it's like I was experiencing my very own heaven on earth while experiencing my very own hell on earth at the same time. And these are some of the photos from different things that I was a part of. These are the different community days that were held for us. And this was a retreat in Cyprus where they flew out a bunch of survivors and kind of, let us experience a week long of therapy there. And another program that I took part in is called mourn, which is a music school in Israel where they basically took a few of us survivors and created a course for us that ran for 3 months where we would process our grief and our pain through music. And all of these things were very, very, very adamant in my healing journey. And I would go to this place every single day for 2 months. My dad would wake up, drive me, stay with me the whole day, take me back home. Between home and there, it was the only places I would go. And I did not speak to anyone who was not within, my Nova circle. Now, while all of this is happening, and it really, really helped, you can see I'm smiling, I'm having good days, I'm having a good time, but what comes with trauma, and this is something that I really want to take a second to talk about, is that trauma is one of those things where when it hits and it brings with it a world of Pandora boxes. And that's exactly what I felt. Even though we were going through all of these amazing things every day and I was so appreciative, when the silence hit, I felt everything. And one of the biggest things I felt was imposter syndrome and survivor's guilt. And what I mean by that is, survivor's guilt is one of the biggest emotions that people can feel when they survive trauma, when others have died and they were here and they survived. But I kind of felt participant's guilt as well because I felt like my story wasn't enough. I was so lucky that I got out how I did, and I remember everyone saying, wow, and you got out so early, and you didn't see the terrorists, and you're so lucky. And when I would sit and hear other survivors, this guy doesn't have an arm, and this guy doesn't have a leg, and this girl is in a wheelchair with 5 bullet holes, and I almost felt like, who am I to come and say how I got out when you guys went through what you went through? And it's insane, what comparison can do to you. It would eat me up inside because I almost felt like I don't deserve to share my peace and that I don't deserve to be here. I would always question, why did Gili even pick up the phone? She's running for her life and these are the last moments of her life. Why did she answer? Was she wanting me to save her? Was she trying to save me? These are things I'm never gonna have answers to, and these are the thoughts that hit when you're alone at night, when you don't have, all the noise and the colors to go to and you're with yourself. And as the months went on, things just got worse and worse because, when you're impacted by trauma, usually you're in a state of shock. You don't actually understand or process the things you go through. And it's as time goes on and kind of people go off a little bit into their normal lives and routines, where you suddenly start understanding and seeing things for what they are. And I remember, alongside with the Nova, suddenly I felt like all these flashes and memories of my entire 23 years of existence, of all of the traumas I've gone through in my life, from childhood to high school to army and so on, things that I had thought I dealt with, but that suddenly I was seeing for what they actually were because I didn't have that innocence anymore. And it was too overwhelming. I was experiencing the worst feelings you can experience in the human spectrum, and it was all at once. And I thought I was going crazy, why am I thinking about things from age 15 and age 10? A therapist said to me, she said, your brain will always prefer to deal with familiar pain than with unfamiliar pain. And so it's not uncommon that your whole life is basically flashing before your eyes and you're understanding everything you've ever been through and you're feeling all the pains that come with it. And I kind of felt like I was desperate for help. I couldn't do it on my own. I genuinely wanted to die. And so I made the brave decision to check myself into a psychiatric ward in a hospital called Ichilov in Tel Aviv. I was there for 3 months in an outpatient hospitalization therapy program. And I would go there every single day for 3 months. Now, I really want to speak about this for a second because when I arrived there, I thought that I was going to be surrounded by other survivors, that this was for all the survivors. And I get there and I actually ended up being the only survivor of the Nova there. Everyone else was regular people, between ages 18 to their 70s and 80s. We were about 30 people in a group. And, I felt like, I was like, what am I doing here? To be honest, I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I was like, is this what we've come to, Ella? Is this your life now? But when I kind of shut that noise out and I gave myself a second, I realized that that was the best thing I had ever done for myself in my life, going to this hospital, because through spending time with people every day, you're sitting and you're hearing everyone's traumas and people bring up anything and everything from their life. And you're going through these things as a group. And, I remember the therapist told me, save your Nova stories for the private sessions because we don't want to trigger people and, trigger yourself. And I was mad at it at first, but then I realized that, this was the first opportunity ever to have in my life that I can give room for this little girl up here. This little Ella who never had herself as a friend. She was always very self-critical. She was always illegitimizing her pain. She was always, stepping on her wounds and making her pain worse. And I never actually, had the love and the friendship within myself to choose myself. And that was when I really, really decided, I'm gonna feel everything. I'm not gonna put Band-Aids on my wounds anymore. I'm gonna take a scalpel, I'm gonna dig so deep in, and it's gonna hurt before it gets better, but that's the only way I can actually heal. I need to let myself feel. And that's what I did every single day. I ended up opening, so many unresolved issues with myself. I ended up realizing through other people who were there in their stories how insane it is how much the human experience isn't that different from one another, the way we think. A lot of times we're really afraid to say what we feel because we're scared we're the only person who feels this way. We're scared of being judged. We're scared of being misunderstood. And so we bottle and bottle and bottle everything up. And I just wish I had someone, to share the things that they were going through, to let me know that I'm not crazy. And it's okay to feel these things. It's okay to compare, and it's okay to feel jealousy and anger and pain and grief and all the things that are not the prettiest sides of you, because they're also a part of you. And this experience with these total strangers made me understand how much it's not about, the physical event or trauma you go through, but it's the feelings it brings out of you. And I realized how much I could relate to them and how much they could relate to me. And that really, really changed my life. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about, where I am today, ever since, all of those months and in these past 2 years. So as I said, where I am today, honestly, is this lovely scale up here. It's a scale that's kind of linear, but kind of not, lots of ups and downs, and that's the brutal truth about healing. It's not just rainbows and sunshine and inspiration and motivation. There are days where you feel the worst you could ever feel. There are days where I feel like I take 20 steps backwards for every step that I take forward. But I know that now I'm not fighting against myself, but I'm working with myself. And this little Ella I spoke about, ever since that day, she's been with me. I see her everywhere. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. And I constantly remind myself to give her a hug and hold her hand and be there for her in order to grow, no matter how long it takes. For me, healing is not about time. I don't believe that time heals all wounds. I believe that with the time, what you go through, you get stronger. You learn how to work with yourself better. You learn how to lean on the people around you in order to make the brighter days outshine the darker days. And that's definitely what I'm doing, very slowly, at my own pace, and one step at a time. And so I'll share a little bit about, what else has been going on with me in these 2 years. When I'm not deep in my trauma, or even when I am, I try to fill my life with things that bring me joy, kind of go back to the roots of the things that have always made me happy in my life. And so I do art. I'm an artist, and I've been really drawing a lot and painting a lot since. I've also started doing workshops in Tel Aviv and around Israel, where people come and I teach them how to paint at sunset. These are some photos from my workshops, and it really, really fills my soul. I've also gone back to dancing. I forced myself, I kind of said, they're not going to take away your love for dance and for festivals and for music. And the same way that people say, when you get in a car accident, the first thing you got to do is you got to get back behind the wheel. That's kind of what my friends and I told ourselves, this experience, they're not going to take away our joy, and we're never, ever going to stop dancing. And so this is a photo of me and a lot of my friends that were actually, with me at Nova, including Adi and Eyal that I'm standing between them. They were with me in the car. And, we've gone to a lot of festivals and retreats, and I still continue to do that. Sorry. And today, I can say that I've also began to share my story publicly. I come and I speak in different communities, and this is such an integral part of my healing journey. As much as you think this is an impact for you, you don't even know how impactful it is for me to be able to take up space, which is something I've never let myself do, and to give myself the chance to feel and share and connect. And so I was here actually in May with the Nova exhibition. I don't know if some of you had a chance to attend. Through the Nova organization, the exhibition was here for about a month and a half or two, and I had the privilege of coming as one of the survivors and speaking. And that experience changed my life because it really opened me up to understanding how important this is for me to do. And so I'm really happy that I get to continue it, and here I am now doing it again. And lastly, music, the thing that started all of this. My love for music is something that keeps growing. I've always loved music, and I've always played and sung, usually behind closed doors for myself, but as part of my recovery process through the Limon School of Music, I actually ended up writing a song called Baby Steps. In Hebrew, it's Tzadim Ktanim. And it's a song that basically speaks about my entire healing journey and the ups and downs that come with it. And so I ended up performing and getting over my stage fright of singing, which was incredible. And then I ended up recording the song, and I put together a music video myself, of myself and other fellow survivors, kind of showing, the different things communities have done for us in our healing journeys. And so I won't be playing the song today, but I did put a QR code. I keep mixing them up. If anyone wants to take a picture and to see it later on YouTube, you're more than welcome to. I would love for you guys to kind of hear and see another piece of my heart. That means a lot to me. I can also put it back later if anyone wants. And I'm gonna leave you guys with two messages before we wrap up. The first one is for all of our beautiful angels that are no longer here with us today. This is something that's really important for me to say. Alongside with Keely, I ended up losing 5 more friends that day, 6 friends in total. And I want you guys to understand that, because of the impact of November 7th, this is October 7th, something that, will stay with us in history forever. This is one of the biggest atrocities we experienced as a nation. I feel that a lot of times when things like this happen, people become statistics. They're spoken about as numbers. This many people were murdered and this many people. But I want you to understand that every single person up here alongside with every single victim of October 7th, these were people, these were children, 20, 22, 23, 24-year-old children that aside from this one specific day that they decided to go to this random festival, these are people with entire lives, with personalities, with families, with homes, with dreams, and with purposes. And it would mean the world to me if you take something away from this, it's that even though I lost all my beautiful friends and they're no longer here with us, their lives can go on through us. And it's so important for people to understand who they were. I don't want them to be seen as victims. I want people to understand the impact and the beautiful lives that they lived. And I've put a few barcodes here of my friends. If anyone also wants to take a picture, I'll make sure to leave this up after the presentation. You can read a little bit about them and see the world through their eyes. And it would mean a lot to me because I know you guys would have loved every single one of them. They're truly, truly incredible. And I miss them. And I think about them every single day. And my last message, and this is, to all of the people that are here and alive, to myself and to you as well. I'm going to share with you this quote that when I was having a terrible day, one of my friends said this to me, quoted this to me, and it's been with me ever since. She said to me, sometimes it feels like you've been buried when in fact you've just been planted. And I think this sentence, speaks for itself, and it's a statement I carry with me. I want to encourage all of us, to remember that even when things get hard, I, along with so many other people, are living proof of it, that you can find light even in darkness, and even when you're at the bottom of the worst and you feel like you're underground and can't breathe, you never know what's waiting right around the corner, and you're going to grow through it. And I really encourage you all to take that and apply it, in your personal lives. And yeah, I really, really appreciate that you guys are here. Thank you so much for listening to my story.
We would like to call on Rabbi Zalman to say the prayer for Maleh Rahamim.
Maleh Rahamim, Sheikhim B'Amelayim, Amitzei Minechon Achaynot Kan V'Yashchina, V'Mayleis Kedei Shimut Ha'Eilim, Kezeir Ki HaMazilim, Asni Shmeitz Kol Hilu Shalchri Lama B'Simchas Le'Eya, B'Abur Shmadus Dakar Adeskar As Nishmasa, Beganei Endehim Nuchasa, Lachem B'Arachmim Yaskeleihem, B'Seiser Knafav Le'Elamim, B'Yitzrer B'Yitzrer Achayim Az Nishmasa, Avinayhu Nachalasa, B'Yanuach HaMishkavam B'Shalayim, B'Neivar Amen.
You may remain standing. We're going to conclude with Oseh Shalom, song